Hi, Shalom Chaver. Last week something very significant happened to me, something that changed my life forever. Last week I stopped being a child. Now you might be looking at me with a white beard. Those of you that know me know I'm a grandfather and say, a child? You stopped being a child a long time ago. At least you would like to think so. And yet, something did change. You see, my father died. And as long as my father is alive, I felt like a child. So as I was growing up as a child. And when I got married as a child. When I was privileged to have my first child, I actually walked in to share the good news. It was right before Passover with my parents. And my father, with his twinkle in his eye and a wonderful warm embrace, welcome to the club of fatherhood. And that too was as a child. And then when I was privileged to marry off a child, it was through the eyes of my father. I'm a child bringing his child to the chuppah. And even my first grandchild was again through a perspective of a child. Until last week. And now, I don't have anymore my father to sort of think about. And these life experiences that happen on a daily basis, suddenly I have to process and assimilate as not anymore a child, but as a husband and as a father and as a grandfather and obviously as a Jew and as a rabbi and so on. And I mourn that loss. I miss it. Being a child is not only gives you a sense of innocence, but it allows you to share the burden. You see, you're not carrying it alone. You could always talk it over with your dad. As a matter of fact, no matter when I came, just those words, hello dad, I'm home, or hi dad, good to see you, or anything like that. Or those two words, hello dad, put me into a situation where literally so much of the load and the burden and responsibility just evaporated. I mean, after all, my dad is here. And when with your dad, you have strength. And when you're with your dad, you have a strong shoulder. And you have a strong figure. And even in the later years where dad had to be taken care of, because physically he wasn't as strong as he used to be, even then, even if you help your dad up into a chair or from a chair, or you bring him some food or whatever, it's always, he's the dad. He's the authority. He's the source of strength. Even if physically you're the one presenting to him the plate. It's actually his strength that's flowing to you. So it's something that I have to come to grips with, something that I'm just beginning to absorb, and I'm sure will take a lifetime's experiences to truly absorb it. And yet, somehow I feel compelled to share it with you. My dad was a very great man in many, many different ways, but I'll just talk as a child. A dad is special because you look up to a dad. I mean, mothers, they nurse you, and very often they come down to the floor and they play with you. But in my personal experience and the way I think about my dad, it was never him coming down. It was always he stood for something and brought us up. Physically, he was almost 6 feet, and to me, he always seemed to be much taller than that. He was a rabbi in the Sephardic congregation called Sharei Tzion, a magnificent building. And the way the synagogue was built, besides having hundreds of permanent seats, which were always filled on Shabbos, the platform where the senior rabbi sat was like elevated maybe 4 or 5 feet off the ground. So if you were sitting in the shul, you looked up to a platform, and on the platform sat the two senior rabbis, one of them being my father. So physically, you actually had to look up to see him. And I always remember, and that feeling never got any less, no matter how many times I came into the shul, no matter how many times I gazed upwards, there was such a tremendous sense of pride. That's my dad. That's the man that all of these people are looking up to. I look up towards him as well. But to me, he's not only a rabbi, he's not only a leader, he's not only the, in italics, the Moses that brings the word of God to the people, but he's my dad. When I was a kid and we would walk home, they had so much respect for him. Always, we lived only a little bit less than a block away from the shul. From the shul to my home, he always had throngs of people walking with him, many of them continuing a conversation, and he knew everyone, everyone's uncle and aunt, and how so-and-so and so-and-so and the latest simcha. Amongst all of these people, I would hold on to his hands, and we would walk together. And though I was a pipsqueak, small, I felt so great because I was surrounded and being held by a true, larger-than-life figure for all of the people that were walking with him. And I remember one charming time, it was a winter day, it was very cold, and I was shivering. We were both wearing gloves. This was not on a Shabbos. And we were walking home from shul, and my father saw me, and I was shivering. So he told me, Ari, put your hand in my pocket. And then he took off his glove in the pocket and put it around my hand. And I was warmed. He warmed up my hand. He warmed up my heart, and he brightened my life. There are many lessons I could share with you. I want to share with you just one simple one. He had a remarkable ability to show respect. He himself, my father, was very dignified. But there are certain people that know how and expect honor, but they don't know how to show honor. My dad was able to make any person not only feel comfortable, but to feel important. And he had this remarkable, I use the word remarkable, unusual ability, especially if the person was older, to make him feel good about whatever he was able to do. In fact, one of his constant sayings to me was, we should daven that we should age gracefully. And somehow, no matter how old the person, even if the person stuttered or couldn't remember, my dad had a way of showing interest and treating the person complete. And actually making him feel treasured, that the years that he carried was not a handicap or a liability, but on the contrary, he would say, this is your dignity, this is your beauty. So one time, on the day of my bar mitzvah, he taught me a lesson which he did not mean to teach as a lesson, but I've never forgotten it. It was the day of my bar mitzvah, and I went to the mikveh with my dad on the corner of Eastern Parkway and Brooklyn. And the mikveh had a mikveh attendant who was a man maybe in his 60s. That was his job. He would, take care of the physical upkeep of the mikveh. He would also do the laundry. So I go to the mikveh, I took my towel, and when I saw him, I just gave him the towel. My thought was just to make it a little bit easier for him so he shouldn't have to bend down. So I figured I'll give him the towel and, we go further. But I'll never forget, my father was horrified. And he just looked at me, not with anger, just in complete amazement, bewilderment. Ari, how do you give an older person a towel to carry for you? And like I was taken aback, I said, Daddy, that's his job. And his words were, he is older. You ought to always show respect to your elders. That's all he had to say. And I've seen that constantly throughout his life. He always shows respect. Always showed respect to someone that was older. The senior rabbi, where he co-officiated when he was in his early 80s, often had to leave the synagogue for personal reasons. The people learned from my dad how to treat an elder rabbi. They saw how he would get up, how he would walk with him. He would link his arms into the elder rabbi's arms, walk him down the stairs, walk with him to the front, make sure that someone took over, all in not in a condescending way, almost as a way of, this is my honor, to show honor to someone who's even older to me. There's so much more to share, and I have so much more to live up to. During the Shiva, my brother told me that Dad said, children, you don't have to fill my shoes. What I want you to do is walk in the path. I will never be able to fill my dad's shoes, but I will spend the rest of my lifetime trying to walk in his path. May God bless each and every one of us with only revealed good, and may we all merit the coming of Mashiach soon. Amen.